What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I'm going to take a look at the recent summer award, the Porsche Cayman GT4 Wasp Edition. I would probably say this is one of the best looking summit vehicles in the game, at least when it comes to the body kit and the overall look of this vehicle. What's kind of interesting though is I didn't actually realize it a long time ago, but the GT4 that was also paid for, which is obviously going to be the exact same vehicle as the Wasp Edition, but basically a different setup. I might end up doing like a comparison video on both of these cars in the future. Let me know if you guys would like to see that in the comments below. I feel like they might end up being kind of similar in some way, but also pretty different. I would say the looks alone are definitely going to be a lot different on both of these vehicles, but taking a look at the Wasp Edition though, I would say a lot of people are probably going to like this vehicle. I mean, my goodness, the way this thing does look with that body kit, plus the yellow going around it actually fits it nicely. You guys will also notice the carbon fiber around the car a good amount. Not like the carbon edition, that thing's obviously wrapped in carbon fiber, but I do think this car does look really nice with what's on it. And also taking like an overhead view of the interior, I really do think they did a great job with it. It's not like overdone, plus it's going to fit the car nicely. My goodness, you gotta love a Porsche. One thing I do want to mention though, guys, I actually did do a video on this car a really long time ago. I believe it was like 8 months ago, which is kind of insane how long ago this car actually came out, and or I kind of used it a little bit back in the day, but this is probably one of those Summit vehicles I just really haven't used all that much. It is one of my favorites. I just don't drive street cars that often because I normally do hyper events, which I really do wish I can actually use a street car in a hyper race, but hopefully we'll see something with that when it does come out in Motorfest in the future. I would love to be able to do mixed events, but besides all that though, let's go do an outside look of the GT4 Wasp Edition and take a closer look at the interior. Then we definitely have to do a quick top speed test and jump into one of the events to really see what this car can do. So now spawning outside and taking a look at the GT4, as I did mention before guys, I really can't stop looking at this vehicle. I really do feel like it's one of the best looking Summit cars in the game besides the Performante. I really do love that vehicle. Kind of a different type of car, but nonetheless though, I guess you really do have to respect the engineering behind these vehicles. I really do think Porsche is absolutely incredible, but let's take a listen to that engine, which you really can never get enough of. And now moving over to the interior view of the GT4, I feel like a lot of people are going to like the inside of this car. One thing I did notice is the overall detail of it does look pretty dang good. I really do like the carbon fiber and or the yellow stitching going around this thing. Overall, I do think a lot of people are going to like the detail of this interior, especially compared to many of the other vehicles in the game. And not only that though, if you guys do like driving in first person mode, at least this car is going to have great visibility. Now let's go do a top speed test on the GT4 to see what this car can get to. So if I do remember correctly when I drove this car a long time ago, I do think that was the biggest gripe I had with it. At least back in the day, there really wasn't that many good overall street cars in the game besides like the Superleggera. Of course, nowadays in the Crew 2, at least in 2023, there's going to be many good vehicles in this class. I cannot wait to see what Motorfest will do with the actual street class, but overall, guys, the top speed on this car is going to be around 240 miles per hour. Now, I am going down hills and stuff and or up hills, but when I did test this car out a while back, I think it did like 235 or something like that, at least when I did it. So 244 miles an hour or so is going to be insanely good on any street car. So it did look like going down the hill is the main reason why the car actually did 244 miles per hour. It looks like on flat ground the car's doing around 241 to 242, which is still going to be really quick. What's kind of hilarious is the street class is obviously going to be insanely competitive, and having a car that might do 260 compared to like 244 is probably going to make a pretty big difference. But at the same time, I do have to admit one thing. I do think 240 plus miles an hour is going to be plenty fast for most of the summits if you guys did want to try out some of these slower cars and actually get a good score in those. So when testing out the Wasp Edition, I wanted to jump into one of my favorite races in the entire game, which is going to be the Flashback Japan. The main reason why, guys, I feel like the biggest highlight of the GT4 Wasp Edition is by far going to be the way this car handles and or the overall speed that it has. Now sure, the top speed of the car probably isn't going to be as good as like the Countach or the lovely Superleggera, but I really do feel like the overall speed that this car does have coming out of corners with its acceleration is still going to be insanely good in many aspects, even on most of the events that you can test this car in. When driving this car on Flashback Japan, I was instantly thinking about why I used to love driving this car around back in the day. I really do feel like the biggest highlight of the Wasp Edition, guys, is by far going to be its stability and handling. If you guys did get this vehicle recently, I would definitely recommend trying this thing out. My goodness, I feel like a lot of people are definitely going to like the Wasp Edition, but using this thing in the Flashback Japan race, one thing I noticed right off the bat is the way this car feels like it's literally sticking to the ground around these corners. I mean, it's kind of insane when comparing it to some of the other street cars because a lot of them do feel unstable. I feel like a lot of the ways these cars do feel when you're racing them is probably going to take away a lot of that confidence if you guys are trying to get better at some of these corners. I really do feel like the GT4 here is going to be a really good car to practice in. It's going to really show you how fast you can get around these corners and really the best way to actually get the best racing line in them. I also normally run manual as well, and with this car being a 6-speed, my goodness, it's so fun to downshift this thing into corners and just fly around that corner with no issues. Sure, you guys might have to use a little bit of brakes, which by the way, the Wasp Edition has insanely good brakes as well, at least what I have noticed when testing them out. The way this car can go around some of the S-turns and or very tight turns is going to be pretty incredible. If you guys got this car, I would definitely recommend trying out this thing, but there was one more race that I did want to run a test on because I feel like it's going to be one of the most annoying races in the game. That's going to be the Pikes Peak Mountain. So for this, there's obviously lots of turns in this one, and I noticed many of the turns in this race tend to have like, well, uneven ground for that matter, so the cars can like almost hop or lose traction and sometimes spin out. But one thing I was noticing with the Wasp Edition, one of the best gears I found to be in, guys, when running manual is going to be third gear around these tight corners. You can basically almost full throttle around them and sometimes upshift into fourth and basically just rocket out of that corner. I actually got the best record on this event. I believe I got like 2 minutes and 26 seconds, and I still probably could have improved in some corners. And that was one of my favorite things about racing the GT4, was the fact that once you guys actually do some of these events, you're like, wait a minute, I could probably do better around that corner. I can most likely do better and a little bit quicker around that one, and you'll find yourself actually doing it. And then if you guys want to jump into one of your favorite street cars like the Countach or the Superleggera or the lovely Porsche 911 GT, I feel like the GT4 is going to be a really good platform to see where you want to get those cars to be with their handling. Unfortunately, the GT4's top speed isn't going to be the greatest, but in many of the events, I feel like it's really not going to be a big issue. At least that's what I did notice. I feel like this car is going to be a lot more fun to race around tracks or events with lots of turns as well. I feel like are going to make the GT4 Wasp Edition an absolute blast to use, and I really do feel like this car is going to shine tremendously on those type of events. But let me know what you guys think about the Wasp Edition in the comments below. I really do feel like many players are really going to be happy with this car, and I'm still thinking about doing a Wasp Edition versus Carbon Edition video in the future, because I do kind of want to see how a Summit car versus a paid vehicle is going to do against each other. But anyway, guys, again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and here are the settings I'm currently running on this vehicle.